Welcome to True Culture,
Building Success from Within, the podcast where we uncover the real strategies behind building teams that thrive and workplaces that people admire and are proud to be part of. I'm your host, Robert Cook, CEO of True Colors International. And with decades of experience in leadership, consulting, and cultural transformation, I will bring you real stories and practical tools to help you shape the culture you've always wanted. Let's get started.
Hi, I'm Robert Cook, your host. And this session, I'm very excited to introduce our guest, Scarlett Lewis. Scarlett Lewis is the founder of the Choose Love movement. It's a nonprofit that has positively influenced millions of children educators in every state in the U.S. and 135 countries around the world. She's the author of Nurturing Healing Love, A Mother's Journey of Hope and Forgiveness that I just finished. It is a tearjerker. Tears of sadness, but predominantly tears of joy. After a tragic loss of her son, Jesse, in the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, Scarlett created a revolutionary, award-winning, proactive, preventative solutions program that teaches essential life skills to help individuals, not just students, but individuals learn and grow from pain instead of being overcome by the pain. So it empowers people of all ages to thoughtfully choose love in any circumstance. So her program is designed for all ages and stages of life. And the movement extends beyond schools to homes, communities, foster care, at-risk youth, corrections, and so many more. I was introduced to Scarlett by one of the True Colors facilitators who I've known for years, who is also an ambassador of the Choose Love movement, and connected us, and I am forever grateful. Scarlett, thank you for coming. Thanks for sharing your story. I don't know where to be. So many times we talk to business leaders about their organizational efforts to drive culture. You're really here to share your story, which is really focused at school culture, but it's personal culture too. Tell me how you think about the broader picture of culture and what you're aiming to do.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Robert. It's an honor to be here. And the Choose Love movement loves your True Colors program. We went through the training and we found it revolutionary in itself, helping us to get along better and to have a better culture within the movement. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, such an important topic. And I really kind of liken culture to having a healthy mindset. For me, everything starts with our thoughts. In fact, that's how I started the Choose Love movement. Literally, I say that it was at Jesse's funeral when I got up to speak. And I told the congregation, who were all asking, what can we do? I said, this whole tragedy started with an angry thought in Adam Lanza's head. He was the former student of Sandy Hook who went on to become the perpetrator. So he had pain and he lacked the essential life skills and nurturing environment to be able to not only manage that pain, but we know now pain has a purpose. We can grow from it. And so that thought just layered along with the pain and later became school violence, but it was also mental illness. It can become substance abuse. It can become so many of the societal diseases that we see today. And for me, really even early on, it was pretty simple because a thought can be changed. So I asked everybody in the congregation, start thinking about what you think about. You just read about this if you read the book. And amazingly, I said, choose a loving thought over an angry thought. Everybody goes out to the four corners of the United States. They start calling me, emailing me, and texting me about a week later saying that one simple act, choosing a loving thought over an angry thought every day, completely changed their lives. And so I thought, wow, I'm onto something. And really, that's one of the foundational components to this Choosing Love for Schools program. Part of the Choose Love movement. Now, this nurturing, healing love is actually a message that Jesse wrote on our kitchen chalkboard that I came home several days later and found. And it just literally changed my life because I realized that this was the solution, that if the shooter had been able to give and receive nurturing, healing love, the tragedy would never have happened. So this is the message that I have literally spread throughout the world and continue to. And this is the message that creates cultures in schools where kids and adults feel safe. That's the number one thing. Feeling, and of course, being safe, seen. So important that we are validated and that we feel like people value and appreciate us and celebrate it. So we say cultures where you're safe, seen, and celebrated. So important.
It feels so true. We have a tagline: valuing differences create unity. That's why it's so interlinked, and that's why I had to reach out to you. Understanding each other. Yeah. I have to ask. I know the answer, but Jesse wrote that before going to school that day.
I don't know if it was that day. It was sometime shortly before. It's on the spray painted side of my oven, actually, and just on a cabinet. And so we didn't use the chalkboard all that much, but every time you walk in from the living room into the kitchen, you pass this chalkboard. And after the tragedy, I actually had gone home to get his clothes for the funeral, and I have the clothes and I walk by, and it's when I saw it, and it was just revolutionary for me, because all the efforts that we've made thus far and all the polarization that was happening, talk about the opposite of culture, all the polarization that was happening after Sandy Hook. And I'm just looking at this message written by a 6-year-old, and I said, he got it. That's exactly what we need. And we just have to figure out how to get there.
That's great. And it's got to start at home, right? It starts at home. And if not, you've got a program to help get it going in schools too, because maybe it doesn't always start. Clearly he got it from his parents, and that's why he had it and wrote it and felt it.
That's really interesting because, ideally it does start at home, and that's fantastic when it does, but we all know it doesn't always. And I use myself as an example. We teach essential life skills like self-control. That's so important in an inclusive culture. We teach critical thinking, personal responsibility, all of these things. And I had those to a certain degree, but I literally wasn't all that emotionally intelligent, honestly, at 44 years old when Jesse was murdered. So saying that it comes from the home, and what I've learned through helping create this program made me realize I don't have these skills and tools. Now I realized these are the exact skills and tools that Adam Lanza, who was the former student, he's the school shooter, he was missing. He was lacking. And I have no doubt personally that if he had these skills and tools, that the tragedy would never have happened. But in the course of creating this program, I realized, and I use myself as an example, I didn't have these skills and tools. So I had 2 boys that I loved dearly, but I couldn't give them what I didn't have. So in other words, they're going to school, and they're going to school with other kids. And so if you're listening and you're one of those parents, it's like, I am so emotionally intelligent. I read all those books. I'm a seeker. I have the courage to share it with my kids. And we talk about these things all the time. That is so great. But you are guaranteed that there are kids in your classroom that do not have those skills and tools. And you want them to. So in other words, you teach it at home, and it's practiced, it's taught, practiced, and reinforced in the classroom. And there's absolutely only goodness that comes from your child having it in the home and then going to school and practicing and reinforcing. And that's the thing about these essential life skills. You go out into the world and you never master them. Because life gives you these perfect opportunities to practice. It throws curveballs at you. pain happens, I don't know, to me every day, some sort of slight or hurt or betrayal or something's happening every day where I find myself having to manage my emotions, having to what we call pause in the choice moment, shift that data that's coming into my brain from my fear center to my prefrontal cortex, where I can thoughtfully respond with self-control and love. And that's what we teach. And it is so vitally important. And you realize now, hearing just a little bit of it, how it is universal, how it is as appropriate for kindergartners as it is for people that are out in the workforce.
Amen. Amen. So your program, I want to do the background a little bit first, but I'm already into it. So the culture that you think is so important to change is the culture at schools, but it's really the culture of people. And that's what your program is built to try to help people change their culture of acceptance to acceptance and understanding, and one of choosing love and kindness. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So we make it pretty simple because was it the movie Wall Street where somebody said, "Tell it to me like I'm a golden retriever," and then he didn't understand it. And so he said, "No, tell it to me like I'm a 5-year-old." And then he still didn't understand it. And he goes, "Tell it to me like I'm a golden retriever." So I'm a golden retriever. I need everything to be made very simple for me. And so really we talk a lot about choosing love over fear. Ultimately, you want to have a culture of love and kindness where there's not power over, but where everyone has the skills and tools of self-control and critical thinking. And it does start with our thoughts. It does start with a mindset, because what is culture but the people that are there and how they work together and their ability to connect and be authentic and truthful with one another, to express gratitude towards one another, to forgive mistakes, because of course mistakes are made, nobody's perfect, to have compassion for people because we're people, things happen, and you want to deal with the whole person at work and make them feel safe, seen, and celebrated. So these are all practices, efforts that we make every day. Just like they say, it takes effort to be happy. It's interesting because above where Jesse wrote "Nurturing Healing Love," I had written right after I spray painted it. It's still up there. This quote by Abe Lincoln, and it's, "People are about as happy as they make their minds up to be." And that was the culture in my home growing up. Was there's not an outside influence that's going to make you happy. If you're not happy right now, you can't blame it on other people. You have to do the work internally to be happy. And if I was, the very few times, people who know me are laughing, that I maybe threw a fit growing up, was upset and languishing on my bed, the whole point was we're down having fun. When you choose to come down and tell us what's going on and come back into the family and allow us to nurture you, we'll be waiting for you. And I think that's a really a good lesson. Part of the title of our program, Choose Love Movement, the power of choice. It's a place where people feel empowered to choose in every situation, circumstance, or interaction how they thoughtfully respond. Like a choose love culture would not be one of reaction. And it's so fascinating when you look at how our brains are wired, Robert, because we have an eye for an eye brain. We are reactive and we are looking to be offended, right? It's so fascinating. So it's sometimes I'm like, gosh, how do people even get along with the way that our brains are wired? They're like caveman brains. And so it does take effort. It literally takes the ability to pause, to regulate, our nervous system, go from the freeze, fight, or flight into the parasympathetic, the calming down, which you can do through breathing. It's quicker than any pill you could take. And then we use curiosity to shift what the thought process in the fear center, which is where it's all thought process starts, to the prefrontal cortex, where the brake on our instinctual reactions is. We were talking about reactions, where you can make a thoughtful response, where you can take your personal power back and choose your response. And so these are a few basic skills and tools that you need to have the foundation for a loving and kind culture.
Tell me how you teach that as a program. How do you roll it out to schools? And it's certainly applicable to every kind of organization. Right?
It's being taught in every kind of organization that you could possibly think of. And it's very simple. It's a formula. The formula is actually behind me. For those who are listening, it's courage, gratitude, forgiveness, and compassion. So, for instance, in a school, we would have them break their year up into 4 quarters. So everyone in the school, all ages, stages, grade levels, even teachers and staff, are all focused on courage. And we're growing the courage muscles. And of course, as Aristotle said, courage is the most important character value. It's the one that underlies all the rest. We need to have courage to face difficult moments in life. And as I'm talking, keep in mind my story. I am literally trying to create the world that I want to live in, one that is safe and kind, one where we don't have kids killing and hurting kids, hurt people. Why are they hurting? They're hurting because they're in pain and they don't understand how to handle that pain. It's not just kids, it's adults as well. So having the courage, the very beginning, courage to face that pain, face difficulty, face conflict, instead of resisting, avoiding, or numbing ourselves. It is so important. And you can actually teach that, which is amazing. So courage to face the pain, get curious, ask questions, because it's in that process that you can actually learn, grow from whatever experience it is, and be strengthened. It's this concept of post-traumatic growth that very few people have ever heard of. Everybody's heard of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a great example of how our brains seek out things that are negative or might hurt us. But there's this whole other field of science called positive psychology, and there are things that can help us. And a lot of times those things go by the wayside in our quest to make sure that we've covered all these things that can harm us. So this is another foundational component of the Choose Love movement. We're the only program that has that component in it to set up that expectation and to teach kids, hey, yeah, you're gonna feel pain, physical, mental, and emotional. Actually, it's what connects you to all other human beings. We all feel pain, and pain is a tremendous opportunity to learn and grow. It helps us find meaning in our suffering. We maybe find a purpose in life, which I certainly did through mine. So it's courage, and then it's gratitude. Gratitude, as Robert, is such an important part of culture. And it's also an important part of happiness. It's having the courage. Now you see why we start with courage, to be grateful even when life is tough. And when we're able to do that, we are more optimistic. We know that kids, adults who are more optimistic have greater success in every aspect of life, including mental, physical, and emotional health. When we can do the practice of that I talked about at Jesse's funeral, choosing a grateful thought over a fearful thought, it gives us a 10% boost in mood. Again, quicker than any pill could do that. And gets us out of that spiraling negativity. When you look at how we're wired to think, we have roughly 60,000 thoughts a day. And 70 to 80% of those thoughts are negative, and over 95% are repetitive. So, in other words, we have these negative thoughts that go through our head over and over again. Totally normal, because we're wired with a negative bias. Our brain is searching for what can harm us, not just physically, but emotionally as well. So just understanding that and having a few skills and tools to be able to shift out of that when it happens, because it happens to all of us. If you're listening out there and you're saying, oh my gosh, that's me, it's totally normal. But having some skills and tools to be able to shift out of that is really important. And gratitude is a really important practice that literally bolsters us from inside out to be more resilient to whatever life throws at us. It is so important. And then we move into forgiveness. And forgiveness was such a huge part of my journey of healing after the shooting. And what I found out was so many people don't understand forgiveness, and they have these preconceived notions about it. Okay, there are things that you don't, there must be a list out there, things that you can't forgive. And then a list of rules, like forgiveness means that you have to forget. And there are things that you don't forget. Forgiveness means that it's okay. Forgiveness means you can't hold the person accountable. And none of that is true. You can forgive anything, and it simply means letting the pain go. And everything that I'm talking about, amazingly, has decades of research behind it.
Sure.
It's really incredible seeing MRIs of people that are forgiving and how it literally stops the pain channels in the brain when you forgive. When you forgive, you stop giving your personal power to the person who hurt you on a silver platter. You take that power back. And what we've found in schools is that kids, it's a teachable skill, and kids can learn it. And not only that, they love it. It is the number one skill out of all four that they choose to use the most every day. Think about it. I mean,
It's totally freeing, right? Rather than sit in resentment that only hurts you and eats you up, you forgive and it unburdens you, right?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so it's really powerful. And when you look at the decades of research behind the person who forgives, it extends your lifespan. You have less pain, less mental illness, less, it's just, it's like there's so many, it's absolutely incredible. So the people who were, I did have people that were angry at me for saying that I forgave, got some fingers in the face,
Sure.
and I understand the anger. I had a 12-year-old son at the time, and I knew that I had to model for him how to move through the tragedy. And I didn't want him to be defined by the tragedy for the rest of his life. I wanted him to be refined by it. And I
Ooh, I like that.
literally set out and sought a way that we could both grow through it and become better people because of it, not despite it. And so when I realized this is my healing journey, like laid out as a roadmap for everybody else, because this is what I synthesized and put together, but there's all research behind it. It's amazing. And then the last character value is compassion in action. So important, because the opposite of anxiety, and you know that we have this whole, if COVID was a pandemic, I call this like a super pandemic of anxiety right now. And the average onset age of anxiety in the US is 6 years old. We know that 70% of kids do not get professional help, so they struggle alone. And if you look at the long-term outcomes of unhealed anxiety, it's everything that we're seeing. And so the opposite of anxiety is positive action. And Choose Love gives you so many positive actions to take every single day to counteract that fear. And ultimately, what we say is, who's your boss? Is it love or is it fear? And it becomes very obvious. Love and fear come from two vastly different places in the brain. And the choices that you make from each, the outcomes are very different as well. So we learn that our thoughts directly impact how we feel, which then reflects how we show up in relationships and how we behave. And so very quickly, you know whether you're coming from love or fear and what you need to do to shift to love, because love feels good. Anger, hatred, resentment, revenge feels bad, does not lead to healing. Love does ultimately lead to healing. And then if somebody is mean or bullying, any of that kind of behavior, and I'm not just talking about kids, you know that they are coming from fear. And you also know how to handle yourself without giving your personal power away.
Someone's yelling at me. Why are they yelling? They're the ones yelling. What are they stressed about? Yeah, it's that perspective that's so interesting. I have to ask, it's Herculean, the strength that you were able to muster up to do this. And I loved what you talked about with your other son. Don't let it define him, let it refine him. Those are magical words. But how it didn't just come, or did it, from above? Had you done work before? Where did you get this strength and this thought process to be able to do that from such a tough place?
It was a tough place to start with. It really was. I had the proverbial rug of life pulled out from underneath me. It was really tough. It was incredibly painful. I have a very strong faith, and I will tell you that it did start from there. And I knew where Jesse went. I knew that I would see him again, and that helps a lot. I can't even imagine not having faith when something like that happens. I had a situation which you read about in the book where I'd never met anybody that had lost a child to violence. And so within the first few days, they brought a woman in to see me who had, and I really thought that I was excited because I thought she's going to give me that roadmap that I'm looking for. And I had this thought in my head that was circulating, which seems unbelievable, but it was joy. And we'd had so much joy together. And I wanted to actually get back to that. And I wanted that for myself. I wanted it for JT. I knew that Jesse wouldn't have wanted us to languish or to suffer too long. And so this woman came in and she started telling me about her story, and it was filled with anger, prolonged anger. It'd been 20 years, and hatred and revenge, and so much to the point where I literally put up my hand and I said, "Thank you so much for coming in. I know I'm going to live now." That was like, the pain is so great when you lose a child. And some of your viewers may have had this experience. You're not really sure that you can handle it. But I said, "I'm going to live. Thank you. I'm so happy." But in my mind, I was like, okay, that is what I don't want. And I think that was the catalyst right there to go, okay, then what do you want? Because it's going to be your choices from today going forward that are going to model for your son what getting through difficulty, roadblocks, challenges looks like. What are those choices going to be? And here's the other thing, Robert, that just some things happened, like they didn't know the motive for Adam Lanza's shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School. They didn't know why he did it. And that was so bothersome to me. 13 years later, they still don't know the motive. And if you look, and I do look, all of these schools, hundreds and hundreds that we have had since then, rarely do they know the motive. And after Sandy Hook, I just couldn't believe. I said, if we don't know why people are doing this, how do we know how to fix it? And of course, we haven't fixed it. And so I got really busy and did a lot of research, and that included reaching out to school shooters and talking to them in prison after they'd gotten out. And yeah, just because I want to ask them the question that I don't think anybody else is asking. How did we fail you? You are kids and you have so few skills. You have so much pain and so few skills that the only thing that you know to find relief is through revenge. and killing as many people as you can, or harming people. How did we fail you? Because you weren't born this way. How did you get here? And what could we have done to keep you from that? And I gained a lot of wisdom from these young men. And if I boil it all down to one word, it's where we started, really. It's being seen. And I think with cell phones, I think with the distraction and busyness of our world today, the fear that we're being plied with, the fact that we have front row tickets, worst of humanity. I'm holding up my cell phone, and our kids do too, in their back pocket 24/7. That's tough. We have to give them a way to choose love over fear. That's ultimately what this program does. And we also have to make effort to make these kids feel seen. And it takes a little bit of effort. It takes a little bit of time. In fact, the last character value, compassion and action, there's a fantastic book called The Wonder Drug. And it's the first time when all of the research for compassion has been put into one place. And they liken the medical field with the education field. So they talk a lot about the two and how they're related. And so these doctors got together and they said, so we know that when patients feel compassion, they do better, they have better outcomes. But what is the least amount of time that we have to spend with a patient for them to get all of the benefits, the most amount of benefits of compassion? Least amount of time to get the most benefits. And so I sometimes end my talks with this, and I ask mostly teachers, how long do you think that is? And it's like 40 minutes. And I give a little down arrow, 30 minutes down, 15 minutes. It happens to be 40 seconds of being present, of making eye contact, of letting that person know that they're not only being seen, but they're being heard, and that you truly care. We talk a lot about kindness, but I'm into caring, because I believe that caring is kindness squared. Caring is from the heart. Kindness can be a check mark. It can be a week-long thing that we do. It can just be something that we do. But caring really actually comes from the heart. And then the doctors found something that blew their mind. They weren't anticipating. And that was that they got as much benefit as their patients in this process of being present and caring. And I say the best way to live your life with the fewest regrets, and I have credibility saying this, is being present with the ones that you love. And I did practice being present with my boys. I am not perfect. I wasn't perfect then, but I was present with them as much as possible. And it does lead to having fewer regrets.
So let me ask you, as we at True Colors, we do a lot with different personality types and trying to understand, not everybody cares as much or in the same way. So how can someone increase their caring levels? Is it through practicing acts of kindness that develops a stronger sense of caring?
That's a really good question. I think you see it, and there is a ripple effect. Kindness, compassion, at least, is contagious. And we know that through research. So you may have somebody that is a little bit resistant for whatever reason, and it could be just personality. It also could be trauma. It could be armoring up. And when you're in an atmosphere, an environment of compassion and caring and generosity, acceptance, that definitely impacts every single person. It's like we had a Choose Love Awareness Month and we did the ripple effect. And so we have these pictures of these ducks being thrown into a pond, and there's a ripple coming off of them. And then they bounce off ducks that are near them, and then the ripple comes back. But the ripple that goes out that doesn't bounce off the ducks keeps going. And that's like compassion and caring. You see it. And when you see it, you are much more likely to do it yourself. And so that's how you start a culture. You seed a culture through, and with Choose Love, we have champion groups. So it's generally not 100% participation in the beginning. That would be perfection. But in actuality, it's generally a group of people that are passionate about having a loving culture instead of a fear-based culture. And so they start doing the work, and the work is what we're talking about. It is seeing you in the morning and saying, "Hey, Robert, how are you? How was your weekend? Tell me about your favorite thing about you." Like, open, I take my glasses off because that's how I can see close, but just like really caring, instead of, "Hey, Robert, how's it going?" And I'm walking by you and you're like, she doesn't really, I'm not going to respond because she's busy and obviously she doesn't really care. But if I stop and I stand in front of you and I ask an open-ended question, it's the same with kids. What's interesting, I was in front of a whole bunch of elementary school kids, the whole school, and this is the first time I'd ever done it. I said, "Hey, somebody come up here." I go, "Okay, I'm going to be pretending like I'm just getting off the bus with you, and we're coming from opposite ways, and I'm going to say hello and just see how it feels." She goes, "Okay." So I'm walking along and I go, "Hey, how you doing?" And I walked past and I came back, I gave her the mic. She's like in third grade. And I said, "So how did that feel?" And she goes, "Okay." And I said, "No, really think about it." And I was blown away. She goes, "Well, I felt like you didn't really want to see me. I felt like you didn't care, and it made sad." I was like, I did not think that was good. I was blown away. I said, "Oh my gosh. Okay. Can you give me
exact opposite of the intention?" Yeah.
We don't realize this. "Can I have a do-over?" She said, "Yes." "So what's your name?" She said, "Kendra." So I turn around, I come back, I stop and move over a little bit in front of her. I lean over, we do the eye contact. I ask a few open-ended questions, "And I'm going to see you later, right?" "Yeah." So I said, came back, I said, "How did that make you feel?" She said, "Loved." And that's what we want everybody to feel, because that's what we want to feel too. And going back to compassion, the beautiful thing about the research behind compassion is that, and we say, nurturing, healing, love, all of the nurturing, healing love that you give, you get back in help and healing too. So when you're out, when you have the courage to step outside of your distraction and busyness and maybe even pain that day to help somebody else, you get help and healing yourself. Just like those doctors found in that study.
Really?
You get it yourself. And that is research. And here's the other interesting thing. Now that you know that, if you go out today, Robert, and you try to be compassionate to somebody else because you need a little pickup, you won't get it. It has to be authentic.
Really?
Yes. How cool is that?
Yeah, I believe that, but I think even an intentional one makes this person feel better. If I am intentionally thoughtful of somebody, and even if I don't want to do it, the old Freudian argument, do I help an old lady across the street to help her or to make me feel good? Either way, it serves a great purpose for both, right?
It's true. That's very true.
So I love it. We're talking about culture, but this is exactly what we're talking about. An individual's culture to drive cultural change of an organization or school group or whatever it is. So let me ask, I don't want to give away the whole program, but give us a snippet of how one learns and practices the main tenets. So how does one start with gratitude? So you can start every day. Wake up, I'm thankful for the breath today that the Lord gave me. Appreciate that. Think of one other thing you're grateful for. How do you practice the other phases? How do you practice courage? How do you grow courage? How do you teach courage?
That's a great question. So you practice courage by doing the hard things, because everything you want is outside of your comfort zone. And like for me, pain often gets us outside of our comfort zone. I was drop kicked out of my comfort zone. That's where your learning and growth zone is. So you could spend your whole life in your comfort zone, but you are not going to become the person that you are supposed to be, your highest and best self. So practicing courage is doing the hard things. It's thinking about something that you want to try. It's trying new things. It's making a new friend. It is going a little bit out of your way. And here's the beautiful thing. We know through neuroscience and specifically neuroplasticity that your brain will rewire. You are who you are. It's true. And some people are probably listening to this thinking, it is what it is. I'm an adult, I'm middle-aged or whatever. I am who I am. And you know what? I'm fine with it. But
Right.
here's the thing. You can always be better. And we're here while we're living to learn and grow and think about even being able to look in the rearview mirror and take those painful experiences from your past that you're still lugging around that are limiting you and dealing with them. Maybe that's the courage muscle that you're going to practice is
Putting down some of the luggage you're carrying. Right.
putting down some of this. Check out what's in your invisible backpack. That's one of the things that we teach the kids. Unpack that invisible backpack and take a look at something that has been impacting every relationship you have, every opportunity. Maybe it comes up in your thoughts every day. Maybe it's in self-flagellation. Who knows? And practice those courage muscles to take it out and look at it, because you can't resolve it unless you name it to tame it. So these are so many ways that you can practice the courage muscles. And I just want to say, the beautiful thing is every single time you do this, every time you do something that's a little out of your comfort zone, hard for you, having that hard conversation with your loved one to be your authentic self, to take off the mask, lower your armor. Anytime that you do something courageous, you are rewiring your brain. And we say towards love. You're literally pruning from your fear channels and adding to your love channels. So you are becoming more courageous. And the next thing that you want to do, it's just a slight bit easier until you become this person that's just everything that you want to be, because you were able to have these courageous choices that you make. That's one way that we do it.
It's the imagery of all of those goals, literally the imagery of unpacking the backpack.
Yeah.
And the imagery of getting rid of the I can't, your own self-limitations by creating some courage from within is fantastic.
And you know what? Even in my own life, and I've learned so much through this program myself, I looked back. I did that exercise, looking back on all the choices that I'd made in my own life. And like every job I ever took was a huge compromise to what I actually wanted to do, to what I was capable of. And that was because it was taken out of fear. And so it's learning to see what those decisions look like and being able to make choices out of love for yourself, for your other people, respect. Loving yourself is really the most important lesson that we learn, to be able to look in the mirror and look in your own eyes and say, I love and accept you. And that's what kicks it off. And for some people, that's not that easy. But for myself, even relationships, every relationship that I had been in was out of fear. And I really said, I'm going to practice this too. This is the best way to live. I'm going to make my choices out of love. And it's interesting because it's such a simple concept, right? Yeah, everything that I'm saying, I don't think anybody would argue against. And it seems so simple, but simple isn't always easy. I'll tell you that, because if it was, everybody would do it. And most people don't. So
breaking routine is scary. We're all comfortable in our own
discomfort.
cocoon.
Yeah.
I like that. Comfortable in our own discomfort. Or
Yeah.
in our own cocoon. Nothing can hurt me. Life does hurt you. It is painful, but we can grow through it, as you say. But you got to get out there and do something to break that mold. Empty the backpack.
Absolutely. You know what a metaphor is that we use? It's the caterpillar that turns into a butterfly. What is that process? The caterpillar attaches itself to a twig, forms this really hard cocoon, and then it has to make a break in it. And if you've ever watched this, and a lot of kids have, struggle to get out of there. And if somebody went in and broke that cocoon open, the butterfly would die because it needs the struggle to become strong enough to fly away. And then when you think about what happens in the process, that butterfly becomes beautiful from the inside out. And that's the same with us. We become strong and beautiful because of the struggles that we faced, not despite them. And I think that's really important for everybody to realize. Those painful events have helped get you to where you are. You are a result of them, and they've pushed you. And maybe you've chosen careers because of them. And maybe the trauma's been too great and you lack some skills and tools, which I did. And so you have languished a bit. It's never too late. That's my point. Never too late to start choosing love, to start practicing those courage muscles, and to start becoming who you were meant to be on this earth. That pain helps us realize the treasure that we actually are, because no one has ever been on this planet, Robert, exactly like you, that sees the world exactly through your eyes, the way that you do, the experiences that you've had. No one has ever duplicated that or replicated.
Yeah.
No one ever will. And so you are a treasure because of all of the experiences that you've had. And I always say, I had one person say, I've never been through trauma or I've never had difficulty in my life. And while they were saying it to me, I was thinking, I would never want to have a glass of wine with you then, because what a boring conversation that would be.
And I can promise you that person has, they just haven't identified it, right?
Exactly.
And what does
Exactly.
trauma mean? It means something difficult, a challenging thought, experience, or what have you, but we all do it. I love the cocoon, the butterfly imagery analogy. It's been just fantastic. It's so true. As you were going on about it, I couldn't help to think that these lessons all apply outward and internal as well, of course, right? But the forgiveness goes both ways, right? Forgiving those that offend us, whatever that might mean offend, but forgiving yourself, right? Having the courage to change, having the focusing on what you are grateful for, and then having the forgiveness of yourself of choices you've made, decisions you've made, and maybe things you've said. Forgive it, unpack the backpack. So it works both ways. It's such a beautiful way to frame it.
Yeah. And so that cultivates how your mindset, that cultivates a choose love mindset,
Yeah.
is what we call it. So that's a way of seeing, feeling, and being in the world. And that adds to the culture. Think about having people that are working like that every day, and it is effort. It's effort because you're becoming the best version of yourself that you were meant to be, and that does take effort. So can you imagine a whole corporation or a whole school where the people are working towards choosing love over fear actively every single day? The energy that they show up with, because we know that communication and then ultimately connection words are such a small part of that. They're important, but a lot of times it's the facial expression, it's the energy, it's the gesticulation. And you have people that are more confident when they're more courageous, and so they're showing up in a better mood because they are practicing gratitude when they wake up instead of, oh God, get me my coffee another day. It's like, wow, I get to have another day, another opportunity. I can't wait to get to work. I'm grateful for the opportunity. Other people don't have this opportunity. It's just a totally different mindset.
You're not surviving the day, right? You're not surviving life. You're living life. You're creating life.
Thriving. That's what we aim for. That is our goal, to have
Beautiful.
thriving and flourishing, not just surviving.
Let me help you. Let me give it a little plug. If anyone's listening or watching, how do they get in touch with you to help roll this out, How do you roll it out? Do you do keynotes? What's the best way to someone say, I like this, I want to practice this personally, but I want my organization, I want my school or what have to really try to adopt this? Because it sounds a little squishy with, let's choose love, but it's almost choose positivity, the same thing, right? So you shouldn't be afraid of it, in my opinion, of thinking I need this in my corporation too. It's not
Oh,
just for some
absolutely.
kids, it's an organization, it's a mindset.
Oh,
Come on.
yeah. Don't make the mistake of thinking this is soft. This is
Yeah.
the hardest thing that you will do all day long is choosing love over fear. And it's how you get to be the best version of yourself. Yeah. Thank you so much, Robert, for that. So you can welcome to go to our website, which is choose.org. You can click the contact button, say that you heard me on the True Colors podcast, and I will get back to you, and you can I do keynotes, we do workshops in every sort of situation, all ages and stages. And the beautiful thing about this is if you do bring it into an organization, we have these no cost lessons for schools and an ability to bring it into your home and into your community, because we want this all over. We're trying to create the world that we want, and that is one that is safe and kind.
Amen. And so how does a school bring it? Is it a train the trainer model? How do you roll it out in a school or an organization?
You know what? It really depends on what works for the school. Sometimes they have one person that teaches it. Sometimes they have all the teachers that teach it together. So usually there's a kickoff, and then we have people that will walk you through the process of creating a Choose Love champion team and then getting it into your school. So it's a joyous process. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah,
And we have a lot of people that have actually educators that have retired that wanted to make a bigger difference. So they've been choosing love the whole time that it's been out. And now they come back and they want to help other people do it as well.
fantastic. I'm so impressed. I really want to put a plug in for the book too. The book is, I think you have several books. I think you have three books, and you wrote a children's book too, right?
Yeah, two children's books and two books, and then another one on the way called Choosing Love for Schools, and that will be a complement to the Choose Love program.
Oh, great. Wow. You're busy.
I'm busy.
The book that I read was really powerful, just in so many ways, not only your journey and the strength that you found, but how the community reacted, and even President Obama's trip out, and how he was so compassionate. It's just so different, and the current administration and how they behave. And anyway, let's not get
You know what's
political here,
interesting?
but
What's interesting and what my takeaway was, it was amazing how everyone really rose to the occasion. When a tragedy happens, you do see people and rising levels of compassion. We got notes from all over the world, and at least half of them were from kids. Just this natural reaction of wanting to reach out and be with people. And then there is a spike in that, though. And I think it's called disassociation or something, where, and it may also have an element of empathy burnout. When it reaches a certain level, you start to feel pain, the pain of the people, and then it drops off. And actually there more violence, and then it kind of levels off to where it was before. And I remember thinking, gosh, this spike, I wish we could keep this up here, because this is what we're capable of. As humanity, we are capable of loving and caring for each other. And what is a way that we could keep that spike going? Because we have kids slipping through the cracks right in front of our eyes. And it doesn't have to happen. I want to go on record as saying every school shooting is 100% preventable. So there is so much hope, and there are things that we can do. In fact, essential life skills programs like the Choose Love movement are the number one most overlooked aspect of safety. And I would say not just in schools, but in other organizations as well, because they give people the essential life skills they need to manage their pain and even grow through it. And otherwise, you have people walking around that are ticking time bombs, and you want to make sure that you're doing everything absolutely possible to keep people safe. And so that's not only the hardening measures that we're doing in schools, the door locks, the active shooter drills, as per the Department of Homeland Security's pathway to violence,
Yeah.
attack end, but you also want to make sure that you're equally addressing the grievance end. That's where this pathway to violence starts, by addressing the grievance. In other words, giving the skills and tools that the kids and adults, it's the same, need, is so that grievance doesn't escalate into violence, substance abuse, or mental illness.
So getting buy-in at a higher level obviously helps get it going a lot faster. We've talked about this in the past. There's been some buy-in at the state level, but not a lot at the federal level of this program, your program, or other programs. Where have you seen it really work great, and where have you gotten the support? And
Yeah, so that's a great question.
how do we get more?
Yeah, because it's possible. So after Sandy Hook, after the tragedy, all the states and started working on their school safety plans statewide. And it's interesting, we are generally reactive. So we start working on stuff after something happens. And when we're reactive, we learn from mistakes, and we're always a step behind. That's why those attack and hardening measures aren't the answer. They're important, but they're not the full answer, because they keep happening. And we actually have also ambassadors. So if you have people in other states and you believe maybe family members or friends, you think that they would be interested in this, we probably have an ambassador in that state, usually a teacher or a former teacher that wants to spread the message. So we have, she's now my executive director, but an ambassador who's a volunteer in the state of New Hampshire. She wanted this for her son's high school. She said, there's a lot of bullying and we really need this. So she arranged for me to come up and give a parent community talk one evening at her son's school. And she happened to see a social media post from the governor's wife about choosing love over fear. And she DM'd her and said, hey, you should really come and listen to this woman speak. She's coming to my son's school. And so lo and behold, the governor himself and his head of the Department of Homeland Security, that had just been tasked with creating a statewide school safety initiative, came to my talk. And now when the Perry Plummer, when the head of the school safety plan actually introduces me now, he says, I wasn't too excited to go hear a woman talking about choosing love when I'd just been tasked to create our statewide school safety plan. But 10 minutes in to the talk, I realized that this was the missing link.
That was the answer.
It fills the hole that we had in our program. So Choose Love was chosen to be the backbone of support for the statewide school safety initiative. And then both my son and I were on the Federal Commission for School Safety, and the Choose Love movement was mentioned in the first few pages of that. And that's a nationwide school safety initiative as a way to proactively reduce and prevent violence.
It's fantastic. So if someone wants it in their community, in their school system, in their organization, they can reach out to you. They can get support through a local ambassador. It sort of holds your hands and teaches you how to do it, how to roll it out.
Yes, absolutely. We have a lot of support. And I'll just say that this movement has been spread by word of mouth. I still think word of mouth is the most powerful way to spread a movement. So we have teachers telling their friends, administrators telling their friends, parents introducing this to schools. And that is literally how Choose Love is spread to over 18,000 schools in 135 countries. It's literally by word of mouth, which is really cool. So definitely talk about us to other people, share our social media posts, and help us get the word out, because this is so important.
I love what you're doing. Thank you for coming. That's exactly why I wanted you here, to try to amplify your message.
I appreciate that.
The chooselovemovement.com is where you want to go. If you get a chance, please pick up that book. The book is so powerful. Nurturing, Healing, Love. It tells a part of the story, but then the development of the program thereafter is part of a solution. It is a solution to the big problem, a very big societal problem we have. But I think it's personal development. I think it's professional development. I think it's organizational development. I think it's cultural development. So what you're doing is God's work, and it's fitting in right with what we're trying to do here is talk about culture and how to make it better. So thank you. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for your message. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you for having me so much. Thanks for all that you do as well. Culture is so important. And I hope that we're going to be working together soon. And again, my website is chooselovemovement.org.
Great. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks all for listening. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to True Culture. If you found today's conversation valuable, be sure to subscribe and share the show with your friends and colleagues. For more information about our approach and services at True Colors, visit us at truecolorsintl.com or reach out for a free consultative conversation. And remember, culture isn't just something that happens, it's something you design. See you next time.